Right, good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to this roundtable that's been brought to you by pimvendors.com, and I'm very pleased to have been invited to chair the event. What you don't want to have from any event is to basically listen to the chair ramble on for far too long. I know you're all here to hear the great panel that we've got lined up for you. But before we move on to them, just a very brief bit of background on myself. I run a media business called Retail Insider, which has a focus on digital and innovation around the retail and food and drink sectors. We've a website with insights and opinions. We produce various reports, including the movers and shakers in retail, top 100, and the digital innovations, top 60. We also run various events with high-profile speakers. When I was invited to be involved today and was told the subject was about Pim and Dam, I knew people were often confused about the two. This was borne out when I went onto Google and I typed in difference between Pim and Dam. Very near the top of the results, one of the responses has somehow mashed up the two definitions and given a completely meaningless answer. It was very clear we were in very confused territory here. That made this event particularly appealing because we're hoping to clarify the definition issues and also to highlight how companies can go about leveraging their digital content and product data efficiently, whether that's via Pim or Dam or both. Right, before I let the panel introduce themselves, with some words from Stefan Spijkers from our host pimvendors.com. But tread very carefully, Stefan, because it's the same no rambling rules that apply to hosts as they do to chairs. Right,
That's
Stefan.
good. That's good. Thanks, Glenn. Thanks. Now I want to quickly introduce myself. I'm Stefan Spijkers. I'm one of the co-founders of pimvendors.com. We are an independent broker between Pim vendors and customers. We do that through a vendor agnostic algorithm that matches your requirements to the 40 partner profiles of different vendors that we have on our site. We also offer quite a lot of free tools and information on Pim selection, and all the other 3-letter acronyms that you see thrown around in this space on our site. And I'm really excited with the amount of people that signed up for the session and the speakers that we have in our panel today. So instead of me just rambling on, I hope we all have a very pleasant session. Glenn, I want to hand it over back to you.
Thank you, Stefan. Keeping things moving on. Moving on to the panel. Right. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Pleased to say that we've got 4 key players of the world of Pim and Dam. If you could each do a brief introduction and then we can progress on to the questions. Ben, we have Ben Rund from Riversand. Ben.
Hello, it's my pleasure. Yeah, as I said, Ben Rund. I think 20 years ago, I was on my first Pim and Dam project, actually was both of it. People in the market may know me from my times at Hyla Software or Informatica, or for the first ever ROI and business outcome research in that market segment. I'm now more than 3.5 years in Riversand and working with the strategic partners across Europe, and I'm really honored to be part of the group.
Great, thanks very much, Ben. Moving on, we have Phil Arnold from Censhare.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us. My name is Phil Arnold. I'm MD of Censhare in the UK. I've been involved in the sort of Dam, Pim and content platform space for over 20 years now. And yeah, over the last 13 years or so, been working with Censhare, which is a universal content management platform combining both Dam and Pim.
Thank you, Phil. Moving on to Rupert Firmstone from novomind.
I'm Rupert. I'm responsible for novomind in the UK. I have 15 years experience with technology relating to content production. I've worked with brands, agencies, retailers and publishers. I'll throw in a little bit about novomind as well, relevant. So we're a German company, 350 people, 20 years old. We have about 400 commerce customers worldwide. We have 4 products, iShop, which is a commerce platform, iMarket, which is a global middleware solution for marketplaces, our Pim solution, managing product information, and iAgent, a customer service platform.
Thank you very much, Rupert. And finally, we have a very special guest, Victor Lebon. How many times have you heard that? Sorry, Victor.
Quite a few. Thank you very much, Glenn.
Victor Lebon from ICP.
Thank you, Glenn. Well, it's a pleasure to be with you all today. Nice to have this opportunity to speak with you. I'm Victor Lebon. I'm the Chief Innovation and Strategy Officer at ICP. I've been working in the area of marketing operations and creative operations for 15 years and I've been at ICP forever. I've had the privilege of working with some of the world's biggest and best known brands from the likes of Unilever and Diageo and Coca-Cola and many others around the area of marketing operations and marketing technology, of course, of which Pim forms a really integral part. So ICP is a consulting and services company that helps companies and brands and technology vendors ensure that marketing operations is in perfect harmony and all comes together for brilliant marketing outcomes. So that's me.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Victor. Thanks to the rest of the panel. And hopefully some of those names that Victor reeled off there, we'll be able to get some interesting case studies and anecdotes as we go along with the questioning. But thanks very much to you all. Right, it's very, very straightforward process we've got here. There's 3 different areas we're looking to cover off during the next, what would probably be sort of 55 minutes or so. Firstly, we're going to attempt the very, very difficult challenge of trying to define and differentiate between Pim and Dam. Then secondly, we're going to move on to looking at the challenges faced by companies leveraging their digital data. And then finally, we'll round things off with taking a look at the future outlook for both Pim and Dam. I mean, the basic aim, my basic aim, I should say, is to facilitate a conversation among the panel. And to help with that, would be great if any of you got any questions or thoughts. We don't intend to have a Q&A at the end. So if you'd like to type your Q&As into the question box, which hopefully you'll be able to access through the bottom of the screen. Tab should be at the bottom there. I'll then bring those points, those questions into the conversation as we go along. But just to kick things off, we're going to look at the definition of Pim and Dam. And Rupert, if you want to go in there to get the ball rolling, what is Pim and how would you say is different in any way from Dam?
So I know we actually said this was really complicated, but I actually think this is quite simple, but I think it's really misunderstood. A Pim and Dam solution are really not the same. And I think they're actually mutually exclusive and serve really very different processes. As we engage with the customers, I can see that they're really confused. Generally, they think they need one, but they actually need the other. So to sort of clarify from my perspective, I break that down and look at what they both do. So both Pim and Dam create content. They have workflow, versioning, access control, content portals. They integrate with third-party systems. So all of them manage lots of images, videos, audio, logos, and lots of other files related to brand consistency. I think either system, either a Pim or Dam, can be a leading system, or we often use the term golden record. I think Dam often has some specialized features, so image recognition, filters, style guides, really more focused on the actual image side, and Pim often doesn't have those and doesn't need those. In many cases, organizations using a Dam don't actually sell products, whereas with a Pim is used for managing product information or content related to products. So I think the key differentiator for me, or the main difference, is that Pim is a tool for organizing product information or product content, and Dam quite simply is not. I think it's also worth covering that customers are confused in terms of what both of them are or not. So neither Pim or Dam are an ERP system. They shouldn't cover stock. They shouldn't cover things like price or be the leading system. So hopefully that sort of, to me, it's simple, but I think there's a lot of education in the market that we need to focus on going forwards.
Do any of you disagree or absolutely completely agree with that one? Victor, you're smiling there. You agreeing with Rupert or not so?
I'd like to build on it if I can. I think at its core, I think Rupert, that's spot on. but because the line between the systems these days has become quite blurry, with some DAM solutions surfacing product information and sometimes even the ability to modify or enrich product information from within the DAM or connect to assets or manage assets from within the PIM. And because ecosystems have become so integrated and interchangeable these days, I would look at it from a different perspective and a different angle, which is how the information about products, both textual and visual, is presented to the right audience. So it's different ways of structuring the information and presenting it back to the end user. Presenting fairly structured technical product hierarchy information is best done in a PIM interface, and presenting visual content and organizing in a different way is best presented in a DAM interface. And for the different user groups, if you work in supply chain or if you work in a marketing function, how you want that information to be presented and displayed to you so that you can do your job is likely to be very different, but they can share information and should connect very seamlessly together.
Great, thank you, Victor. Yeah, I mean, these are clearly fundamental points. Phil, do you want to add to
Of
that?
course, I can add a few bits into that, because I'm in a lot of agreement with what both Rupert and Victor are saying there. And I think that, you know, one way to look at it is effectively DAM is handling all your digital assets, your imagery, your video, maybe your 3D models, or augmented reality items, that kind of stuff. And the PIM side of it is handling all digital information relating to your products. And those two things, if you're a retailer or a manufacturer or a distributor, that stuff has to be very strictly. What you're trying to do is communicate with your customers, whether they're B2B or B2C, in the most effective way wherever they are at the time. And there's elements of both that pretty much every organization that works in those areas is going to need. And whether you do that in separate systems, whether it's an integrated system, it largely doesn't matter. The end goal is the same. But the part that always has to be looked at first is, what is the customer trying to achieve? What is the driver for your business in looking for some kind of solution? And then building the requirements out of that. And I think because the DAM and PIM landscape is now so complex, it shows that organizations like PIM vendors, being vendor agnostic, having that sort of analysis of the market approach, becomes more and more valuable.
Yeah, no, thank
you. Looking at the right vendor's product needs, but also to streamline and speed up the procurement process.
I think, yeah, I agree. I think sometimes when technology solutions are being sold, it can often be overlooked exactly what is the best solution for the customer. So thank you, Phil. Ben, do you want to add your thoughts onto what the other guys have said?
Yeah, for sure. And I will not come up with an additional definition. I think you all said very wise words. You're all super experts. So I think that is fully true and correct. But I want to add a small counterpart that I think maybe 20 years ago or 10 years ago, I did see that struggle or that question mark. In my recent customer engagements in the last couple of years, I have explored that it's pretty clear to the companies what the difference is. That's my observation. And clearly, Pim and Dam are the power couple for your content strategy. What it's all about, at the end, it's about creating the customer experience, make the information relevant to the client, and drive measurable outcomes, which is in the digital world, still things like the conversion rate or the product returns and so on. These are the business pains the digital marketing or e-commerce leaders are concerned about. And that's mattering at the end of it. I really don't see that there's a struggle in the definition and the overlaps. But I think we'll come to more depth in the definitions and how it plays together as the conversation goes along.
Great. Thank you, Ben. Actually, you were saying that you don't want to add another definition. Well, Chris Barnes stepped in with the first question. So thank you very much, Chris, who says he does have a new definition. And he's saying the modern PIM, which combines Pim, Dam and content syndication. He's curious as to whether the panel agrees with this term and the definition of it. Does anybody want to say cast their opinions or aspersions on the modern PIM?
I would challenge that. I would challenge that. I think, yes, there are the ability to do all of those things together in one platform to a certain level. But the ability to do that when you have a large organization and you're trying to do many different complex things, particularly in a global multi-brand, multi-regional environment on the same platform, you start to enter the territory of doing lots of things badly, or I wouldn't, maybe not quite that harshly, but if you really want to optimize the interface and interactions that a particular audience or groups is going to do, it's better to specialize and integrate, because otherwise you have to try and compromise too much for the different audiences, and then that elastic gets stretched quite strongly. So I would challenge that.
Well, I'd actually like to
offer a slightly different view on that, Victor, because obviously coming from a vendor that does provide an integrated system for both Dam, Pim and content, it's about how you present the information to the users within the organization working with these environments to make sure that they're interacting with the data in the most efficient way possible. So where they're approaching the PIM data, you want to do that in a way that suits the PIM data, not the way that suits the media assets. But you still need those things linked together. If you're pushing a product out to retail or to syndicating it to third party or so network, know that your message is appropriate for that region, that territory, maybe some regulatory compliance that you need to build into it as well. And it's got the correct product packaging, ingredients list, whatever it might be. Those things have to be very well connected. So yes, I agree, it can be done through integration of multiple platforms, but it can often be a faster route to market to use a single platform that can provide those, depending, again, coming back to the first point of what the business needs are, because there will be times when business needs dictate that there isn't a single solution that can provide those things in the appropriate way, and you end up with maybe two tools which appear on face value to both be PIMs, but are providing different functionality to give the end organization exactly what they need.
Is it the case that to have the optimum operational processes, you'd have both? Or for a less complex business, you would be better with something that combines the two?
Well, I'd actually like to perhaps even challenge you both on that. And I would even go as far as to say some companies don't need a PIM system, and Excel is absolutely fine, and a file system is absolutely fine. And you can get people to manually do this process. I think there is no one size fits all. So some companies have a light PIM requirement and a heavy Dam requirement. Sometimes it's vice versa. So I've seen companies before where one solution can offer PIM, Dam, and syndication of content really elegantly. And I've also seen large enterprises where they need all singing, all dancing PIM with every single feature, and the same for Dam. And they also need complex integrations, and they need a headless solution, and they have lots of money, and they need a really complex solution to support their business goals. So I think there really is no one size fits all. And this is where requirement analysis is really important as part of the process. You really need to look at what the business needs, not about the technical requirements, what the business actually needs, then look at the technical requirements, and then decide whether Microsoft Excel for €100 and a file system meets your needs, or whether you need to spend a few £1 million on an enterprise solution.
Actually, I forgot to mention, Rupert, there's a fine for the first person to mention Excel.
Ah, there we go.
Actually,
I'll take the fine.
Yeah, now you mentioned it twice as well, so that's double fine. I've got a nice simple question here from, is it Gerben? I do apologise if I've pronounced that incorrectly. In general, an integrated solution is often a compromise on either one of the territories, either PIM or DAM or content. Do you think that's a fair comment?
Sorry, was that to me?
Yeah, but yeah, do you want to?
Yeah, sorry, I think you've been cut off so briefly. So can you just repeat? Sorry, I didn't hear my name.
Yeah, the question was, in general, integrated solutions can often be a compromise. In this case, on either one of the territories of either PIM, DAM, or content syndication.
Yeah,
do you
I think
that's a fair comment?
I would like to add a few thoughts to that question, because we can look at it from a generic perspective, from the PIM and DAM conversation, or from any other things which play a role in the digital experience. And there will be always waves in the market which tell you, okay, now you have to centralize everything in one golden source, or you can connect things. But for sure, the market has moved to companies that you rather connect the things than you just collect everything in one place, because at the end there are always different ways to solve it. I think we need all of that together. You have one platform which does both or multiple things. You go for strategic partnerships and have standard out-of-the-box integrations or connectors. You use APIs to create project-based integrations. But at the end, it comes down to the people, the process, the change management, and the governance you're putting into place to make it work. I think the integration is no longer a problem because technology has advanced to either do real-time, near real-time, or batch integrations, whether it's these two systems or others. So I don't see there is a real compromise. But for sure, I see more overall enterprise companies going for best of breeds and combining that together, while smaller companies tend to be okay with a good enough solution which does some of all of that, if that makes sense.
I've got to say though, Ben, I've heard that one where integration's not a problem before.
If I can add something to this, so years ago, my belief was that you should have everything in one system, and I really believed that, and I've had to change my mindset. And customers have led that change, because I've seen enterprises say we want things in separate systems with integrations. And this was really against my philosophy. But going forwards in the enterprise space, companies are getting fantastic DAM solutions with all of the bells and whistles. The same with PIM, all the bells and whistles, if they put the integrations in place. But that's not right for every customer, and those projects are going to require more man days than a system that's off the shelf that does both. So I am seeing a change in the market that I didn't see 5 or 10 years ago.
And I'd just like to highlight that there is real strength and resilience in compromise and in flexibility and in modularity. And again, especially in the world that we live in right now, where agility and resilience is really important. If you have an ecosystem that is connected together, not system A connects to system B, but the type of system that connects here because it delivers these use cases, and type of system here that delivers these use cases, as the technology evolves, and it is continuously evolving at such a rapid space, you need to have the ability to be able to evolve your ecosystem and saying, I'm going to plug this piece out, replace that here, reshape it that way, without having to redefine your entire ecosystem within your organization from scratch every couple of years, because that's very rigid, and things can fall apart. Because it's not just the technology that's also evolving, the consumer behavior and the consumer demand and the things that you need to do to meet those demands is also changing at a rapid pace. So having a built-in flexibility and modularity, as Ben highlighted, with good change management, with good governance, with good communication, gives you that flexibility to continuously reshape your ecosystem over time and still have good continuous customer experience.
If I can just
Yeah, sorry, Rupert.
If I can just throw something else in here, of course, nowadays we're all headless. I mean, not me as a person, but our solution is headless. Other dam systems are headless. Pim solutions are headless. So 10 years ago, you couldn't integrate them. Now everyone's headless. You've got standard API. The integrations are much simpler if a customer wants that.
I think I agree with a lot of that. The way we integrate now across platforms, even if you've got one platform that does 2 or 3 of the things you're looking to do, integration is always key. And you've almost got to approach your business requirements from an integration first point of view, not as that's the key driver when choosing platforms that you want to work with. If a vendor hasn't got a robust, scalable and flexible API, then they're not even worth considering, whatever you want that to do. Because yes, you might be able to make it work for you today, but you will very quickly hit a problem 6 months, 2 years down the line, trying to integrate with something else. And even unless you're a very small organization, the initial implementation is going to have multiple integration points anyway, and you've got to consider those right from the off.
Very good point. Yeah, you really have to think about what you need now and what will you need kind of the next 5-year strategy. So take both things into consideration. Good point, Phil. Yeah.
And this is where
even harder, because we don't know what you're going to need in 5 years. The technology landscape is changing so rapidly, plus your business is going to change. You know, the products that you sold 5-10 years ago are probably very different to what consumers are looking for today, and the markets and the channels you support is also completely different. And those problems seem to be accelerating for pretty much everyone.
Thank you, Phil. There's a question here which is from Nate Svoboda, and I'm not intentionally picking people whose names I can't pronounce. But they've said, what are some of the shortcomings you see with Pim and Dam solutions separately that are available today? And I guess that links to a question I was going to put forward, which are, what are the common pitfalls in picking one or the other?
I'm happy to throw something in there. So if it's a basic Pim or Dam system, you often can't integrate because they don't have the strong APIs. I think it's more the enterprise solutions that have really good APIs. So I call the more basic ones toy solutions. Apologies if that's offensive. So if you have one of those more basic solutions, you really are stuck. And we see a lot of situations where customers have chosen the wrong product because it looks nice. It looks like iTunes. It's a Pim Dam that looks like iTunes. It's fantastic for those window shoppers. And then suddenly they start the project. They get 3 months into the project, and it's a case of, well, now we need it to do this, and it won't do it.
Yeah, actually, it's an interesting point we've got here from Rupert Firmstone, which says, shouldn't companies strive to just use best of breed solutions for both Pim and Dam and make sure it's the integration layer that's up to task? Provided you got loads of money to do that one, of course. I mean, that sounds like it would be the obvious, straightforward thing. Again, we're back to the fact a lot of these things boil down to the quality of the integration. Well, do you think that would be, with a big budget, do you think that's a sensible approach?
Yeah, well, again, a big budget doesn't mean that you need to spend the budget, of course. You know, so I think, look, best in breed, it goes back to what are your requirements? We were saying this at the start, right? You know, what are your requirements? Does it involve 2 systems connecting together? For large organizations, I think Rupert said this quite eloquently earlier, who have large, complex needs in a fairly changing environment. Yes, best in breeds you can integrate makes absolute sense, but every organization is going to do it ever so slightly differently. I think going back to the previous question, I just wanted to have a quick comment, because I've seen this happen quite a lot of times. Some of the challenges and pitfalls of Pim and Dam coming together is that very often they are procured at different times for different purposes. So you might have the Pim that might have been purchased at one point, and then the Dam may get purchased a couple of years later. And then when you try to bring them together, inevitably that needs to involve some sort of, I think one of the person asking the questions has some sort of compromise in terms of adapting the ways of working and the processes within these systems so that they can play nicely together. And then when each of those systems rigidly sticks to what it does, you know, I'm in the PIM and I'm going to manage both visual assets in here and upload assets directly into the PIM as well as product information, because that's what I bought the product for years ago. And then we have to make that work alongside the DAM. Well, then that doesn't work at that point. You have to, it's very rare that these two systems get purchased together at the same time. So because they get purchased at separate times, you really need to then almost kind of ignore what happened previously. Imagine like you were purchasing those and implementing them at the same time together. How would you then best set it up for those ultimate business outcomes and journeys?
Right, thank you, Victor. Right, just moving on. I do apologise at this stage for those people who've put some great questions into the box. Just the fact we can't cover all of them, unfortunately. I do apologise, but hopefully you've got some questions for these next couple of batches. But if we move on to the customer challenge section, and I'm hoping we can get some of the guys to bring in some of the examples that actually relate to real world companies out there. First question would be, you know, what do you see as the main challenges faced by customers looking to leverage their digital content? Now, you look like you were sort of continuing where you left off, Victor, and I know you did reference some great clients earlier. Do you just want to kick off on that one? What's the main challenges?
So I think that the biggest challenge that the clients I work with these days have is the changing nature of e-commerce, frankly. You know, because e-commerce used to be very much about static product imagery and, you know, product information, both technical or sometimes enriched. E-commerce is changing quite dramatically to become much more of an enriched consumer experience, and also used not just for selling stuff on a shelf, but also brand building, brand positioning, two-way communications with customers. So you've got the e-commerce space, or rather the expectation for consumers, that is changing faster than sometimes the technology's ability to keep up with it. So again, the MarTech space and the PIM vendors who are on this call will be quite nimble and agile in responding to that, but there's inevitably going to be a little bit of a lag as to how, you know, customers want this now, not in the roadmap that's coming up in 2 years' time. So the challenges that we find is, how do you respond to the immediate need? What are the processes, optimizations, or things that you can do to respond to the need now? But at the same time, not forgetting that you also have to build towards incorporating this into a long-term, a long-term change in the business. And that can be a tricky thing to do.
I'd really like to add to this. I think Victor is a real guru in this, but to emphasize, content is really king. It's a really powerful engagement tool, particularly for the younger audience. And if I take companies like Gymshark, they're building their whole business around engaging and using content to engage their audience. So it is a huge differentiator. I mean, it's even make or break for some businesses. And I think creating this content and using it in the right way is very challenging. I mean, really, really challenging.
Right, thank you, Rupert. Yeah, well, why do gurus always have beards, I wonder? Anyway, that's a question for another day. Yeah, Ben, do you want to come in on that as well? What would you say some of the main challenges faced by?
Yeah, sure. And I really like that you brought up the content. It's not the economy of the creators. Social media, social commerce, chat commerce, they're dominating the experience, and that requires that content and the things around it. I think we discussed already challenges like the processes, the data which are siloed, and getting the digital experience stacked together. But I think, and is there also a fine for talking about COVID? Probably yes. But the last 12 months or so have shown us that companies have to plan for the unplannable and have to create a much different setup of flexibility to react to changes. Well, this is a new commerce or chat commerce or social channel, or it's new business models and so on. So creating your setup in the platform economy that you can react fast and not wait for something. Will it come on the roadmap of a vendor? Or how do I implement it by either higher or lesser efforts? The flexibility is the top criteria, in my opinion, as well as the ability to scale. I think these are two things I want to give the people by the hand when they're looking into that. Just to Censhare. And of course, I think we'll have more examples as we go with the conversation.
I just wondering, Ben, is there a certain direction clients are wanting to go, whether Pim, Dam, or what are they quite keen on pursuing right now? Because clearly we all know it's a massively richer data environment we're living in now, and the customers demanding it, customer expects these things. But what's the direction of travel?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because there have been these questions about the modern Pim, Dam's indication Pim combined. No one has thrown in the term of the experience thing. I think we live in the experience economy as well, where things are getting tied together. Everyone has to own the customer, understand the customer and the prospects. Who are my prospects? Who are my customers? Making that part of the thing. So there is conversations around customer data platforms or the customer 360 view. There are conversations, what are the e-commerce vendors trying to do, and what offerings in that matter are they bringing together? So I think overall, I think what we have learned from companies like Apple or Amazon or others is everyone tries to become a kind of a marketplace. So everyone has to think, what is a marketplace business in my industry, and what setup do I need for it? And then combining that with the experience economy. So for me, I think the platform economy and the experience economy are two mega themes which are driving that. And then we see, of course, the big discussion about automation, intelligence, and AI is going to save the world. Yes, it has an impact, and it's evolving every day, especially in this matter we're discussing here. I think these are the things, the hyper automation, combining this with the platform and experience economy, in my humble opinion, are the big directions where we're going.
Great, thank you, Ben. Yeah, we've had comments in the Q&A just about in terms of the effect marketplaces will have on Pims and Dams, particularly within the retail sector. Phil, did you have anything to add in terms of what you see as been the challenges, and also, as I said, the direction of travel that organisations seem to be wanting to go in?
Yeah, I think a lot of the key sort of top level challenges have already been addressed by the rest of the panel. But one thing I'm seeing come up more and more at the moment is sort of regulatory landscape as well, especially with things like GDPR, where we've got customers that have imagery and video that contains lots of people, especially members of the public. They need to get permission for using those assets wherever they're going to be used. But they also, more importantly, now need to provide a mechanism for any of those individuals to opt out in the future. And tying all those things together becomes an enormous headache. And we're working with one of our customers at the moment to help solve that problem, because obviously they've got the images, they've got permission information, but how do we tie that together? And you've then got to be able to backtrack in the future and say, well, where has this been used? What have we done for these assets, so we can then find them again in the future and know how they've been used? Becomes a very big problem for a lot of organizations.
Yeah, thank you, Phil. I'm just wondering, with regard to Pim and Dam and this data thing in general, is the driver just customer demands on organizations, or is it a case of, these things are addressing the reduction of silos and getting all the data, I guess, in one place? Although if you've got both a Pim and a Dam, I guess you need a central repository linking those two together. Is there any views on what the drivers are here?
Well, as we've established that we'll not get fined if we use the word COVID, I will use it again. Certainly for product companies, if you cannot do e-commerce effectively and you're solely relying on physical bricks and mortar, you are going to die. It may be a slow death, but the direction of travel is going that way. And make no mistake, once COVID settles down, customers aren't going to go back to the way they used to do shopping. So I think previously having integrated Pims and Dams and in this environment to support e-commerce effectively, efficiently, was either you were a big company and you could afford to do that really slickly. For some companies, it was a little bit more optional. It's now no longer optional. If you have lots of products, you have to do this at scale. You need the tools to be able to do so, and to be responsive in this marketplace. So yes, customer demand, people want to shop online, and you need to have products there quickly, completely. And if you don't have the tools to do so, if you're only using Excel, and I'll accept the fine gladly, if you are a large company with enough products, you're going to get into trouble. Again, if you've got a small set of products and you have your own D2C model, that may be different. But for large volumes, there's, you need to have it.
I'm seeing a general trend around customer experience. So the main driver for Pim I'm seeing as to create good experiences for customers, whereas previously, and that's coming from the business side, whereas previously I saw Pim coming from the technical side, in that we've got to manage this product data going through the supply chain. And this was IT dealing with this data issue. And now I'm seeing it's the business wanting to use the data for customer experience.
Victor, I was going to come to you anyway, because I was going to go around each of you, because you referenced Gymshark. It'd be great if you had an example of an organization you think was doing a pretty good job at the moment. And I don't know whether that would be because they've got a Pim or a Dam or both or whatever. Was Gymshark put forward as a good example, Rupert?
I think Gymshark is pretty unique in that they built their whole business around content and social media. I mean, it's amazing, I have to say. And you've got other companies like, I mean, we shouldn't really mention company names, but you've got other companies like Arcadia, who perhaps more old-fashioned and haven't built their business around customer experience so much, that have obviously got left behind. So that comes back to my point that this is a massive differentiator, and it is make or break for a business, and it is a cultural issue for organizations that's difficult to change.
Yeah, thanks, Rupert. Ben, you've got a fair few clients in there. Are there any, or even non-clients, I guess, you think are handling this one pretty well in relative terms?
Yeah, well, I would say, without kind of dropping names, but I was thinking of a story where I think modern technology plays a role in order to deliver the experience which is needed. And we talked about scale and also volumes. And for example, when I look at an example where a global brand of ours who is trying to really distribute assets of images tailored even to the individual customers in real time globally, they're using things like the blob store from Azure, ensuring high performance that is really working at high volumes globally. And we're doing that, for example, together with our DAM partner, Sheridan, for example, where the customer has built really a best of breed connection of two things together in order to scale and make it happen. And the funny thing is, I've always seen this question, and it was mentioned, right? Pim, sometimes you said that, Rupert, I think, was seen as this tech stuff, right? That was driven by, and then came other fancier things like commerce solutions, and now the syndication of vendors who are coming from a more outcome-oriented, let's say, sales and marketing approach to you, dear customers who are attending here. At the end, you have to achieve that outcome, and that happens by combining it smartly.
Great, thank you, Ben. Victor, you able to reference any by name, or is it? Are we?
Yeah, I'll try to give the example without the name. I think we have a few of our clients who are doing this very well. I think the ultimate goal is when you can have a properly connected ecosystem that goes beyond Pim and Dam, that connects to your ERP, but also connects to your social, but also connects to your physical stores as well as to your physical products, and then media. And then you start to connect all of the other pieces of your ecosystem together so that you can be very purposeful about the data and insights that you generate and take appropriate action. Either it's preemptive action, you're doing forward planning, or reactive. When it comes to reactive, again, we have this with one of our clients where, for example, they have a platform that's trawling the web that's going to tell them, and not them, a specific person in a specific market to say, you have gone down on this e-commerce platform from number 1 to number 2 in the search, and here is why, because your competitor has an extra image, a better description, etc. That one person can go into the system. They can either find some existing content that already exists, link it to their product. They can write SEO optimized copy directly into the platform. They press a button, it gets packaged up to that retailer profile and distributed back to that retailer in minutes. Now that shouldn't take you days or weeks or months to do. You should be able to have that fast turnaround in that fully integrated ecosystem. And you have to be quick in terms to respond this, and of course, do it efficiently at scale.
Right, thank you. Victor, do you want to add some final thoughts onto that one, Phil?
Yeah, I think the key thing that customers need to focus on is flexibility. That once you've got an ecosystem in place, however it's pulled together, whatever the integrations are that are in place, it's being able to try things and see what works, see what new technology is out there that you want to take advantage of. And I'm seeing sort of the most success with companies that are looking to combine the best of online and offline. Where we have one customer we've been working with on, they're a retailer, combining the in-store experience with their mobile experience, so that yes, one of their stores might be smaller and it doesn't have availability of all products, so you can be looking at a particular product, but the mobile app either in your hand because it's your phone or something on the display is promoting related content that you might be interested in. And because you know about the customer, you can pull all that information together to, you know, their buying history, you know what products they've already bought from you, and you can tie all that information together and offer them specific promotions based on where they are, and sort of really lead them through a combined online offline experience.
Right, thanks, Phil. I've got a question from Nate again, which is it's a great sort of journalist, and I'm a journalist, so this is the sort of question I like. It's quite black and white, and you know, in reality, things aren't quite as black and white. But he's sort of putting forward, you know, you've got to go beyond Excel, where maybe you are an organisation with 500 plus SKUs and you're operating three or four channels. You then got to ditch the spreadsheet and go to the Pim or Dam or whatever solution. And it's never quite, there's a threshold where once you get beyond that, you've got to do it. Do any of you have sort of things you'd say, that's when I'd suggest you need to move on and get some proper solution in place? Did you, Ben?
I have yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Rupert, do you want to step in on that?
Yeah, this is really interesting. So I don't really think there is a threshold. And I went to visit a company about a year ago, and I can't give you the name. But they had a tiny number of products, and I almost didn't bother going down there, but I went to visit them, and even though they had a tiny number of SKUs, their marketing content, their language variants, the structures of creating content meant that they needed a Pim. I mean, the number of products was just ridiculously low. So this shows how you can't just look at the number of products, you have to look at the big picture. And interesting with that customer, I went down and they said, oh, we need 20 users. And once I asked them, well, do you have translators? Do you have external agencies? And I quickly realized that there were 100 people involved in the processes for very few number of SKUs.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's not based on the volume of SKUs, but it's what you're going to do with it, and how, and the channels for engagement. How are you going to reconnect that product information into different areas, and the complexity of that, and how ambitious you're trying to be, and you know, be ambitious.
Yeah, the scale up is going to be very tough, isn't it? From if you just keep using Excel, and you live very all over at some point, won't you?
Do you know what? One thing though that does still surprise me to this day is that there are some companies, again, small and large companies, who look to put in place systems like Pim and Dam, or even sometimes really clever AI machine solutions, but still haven't got some fundamentals that need to underpin all of it. So again, Ben, in your context, haven't got any master data that exists any separate from any one specific system. So there are, again, you know, if you're looking for all these different platforms, there are some real fundamentals that you need to do, master data and good governance being one of them, to enable all of this to work. I know this is the conversation about Pim and Dam, but I had a large enterprise customer the other day, I won't say who this is, who's saying, oh, can I implement Pim and Dam together without master data? And I went, no, you know, please defer that, because it's just not going to work. So there are some key principles around data ownership, master data, and structure that you need to have in place before you can start to plug in these other pieces on top.
Yeah, Phil, I might have cut you off early. Did you want to add?
Yeah, only to add a couple of things to that question is, so it's making sure that you react to Excel for potentially falling over way before it actually happens.
Yeah.
If you know your business's direction of travel and you know that you're going to scale out into a new market or a new product segment, you want to be moving away from Excel into a Pim way before you hit that problem, because it becomes much harder to do it afterwards.
There's another example that's quite funny that I'll throw in here, which is a customer that I spoke to that was doing everything in Excel. It's a massive organization, and the person that was managing it in Excel left the company, and she was collating the Excel spreadsheet from emails from lots of different people, from bits on file systems from external companies. So this organization was in a complete mess because they didn't. It's not only that it was in Excel, that they couldn't track down all of the different, where the content had come from and the approvals, which is obviously what a PIM system does.
Now, Ben, you're the master data management man on this panel, aren't you? What's your view on this one? Throw out the Excel sooner rather than later, I guess, like the rest of the guys.
Respectfully, we're probably talking a long time already on that Excel thing. I think my colleagues here have answered that, and I think Victor, you spotted it. So, but I wanted to add a customer perspective on that. Right, there are enterprise solutions, there's small solutions, there are mid-size solutions, and which can do different sizes, and companies will find what the right match is. But at the end, everyone is trying to base their business on data. Everyone's now starting to talk about it, but some have not yet understood what that really means and what you need to really be ready if you want to drive your business on data. And similar to that Excel question, I've met with a pretty small organization once who felt like, okay, an enterprise solution is not what I need, but they have been fully running on data. Without data, they have no business. So, and they had wanted to grow to volume, so they need to come back to that scale thing. Connecting the dots for relevance, I think, is the key. And therefore, where you're talking about a relevant offer, you need to own more than just the product and the digital assets. You need to understand, is that Benjamin or is that Ben? It's actually the same person, and he was already talking probably negatively on social media. I want to make him a happy customer, and that's where I think the rubber hits the road.
Great, thank you, Ben. Which I guess potentially brings us on to the last little bit, which we've got 10 minutes or so for, just taking a look at the future. And I'm just wondering, for an e-commerce business particularly, could we be looking at a scenario where you've got a PIM and maybe with a DAM as well, which could be as central as the ERP systems have been to date, where everything runs off the product info, which also has got your order engine, all those components, and they're running from a PIM stroke DAM type situation? Any Victor?
I don't think PIM should replace ERP. I think, well, ERP is very central to the business, but I guess if I understand your question correctly, will PIMs and DAMs become as essential to a product company as the ERP is? I think we've already passed that point.
Right. Okay.
It's not just about getting products on a shelf. It's about communicating and sharing in this wider context. I think if we're looking to the future, I'll just say China is the one word that I would say. I remember looking at e-commerce in China about 7-8 years ago, and looking at their selling pages that they had online, which were very overwhelming back then. That's what product detail pages look like in Europe and in the Americas and the rest of the world today. If you look at what China are doing today, if you look at the Singles Day event, 1111, where you have live streaming of concerts that go with product launches, and you have, it's the single biggest e-commerce event in the world, social events, social commerce, how that seamlessly connects with everything. That is the future of travel for that the Pims and the dams and the ecosystems that support it will need to support in the future for those kind of business outcomes. And you know, there's a way to go before that happens, but you need to start building the foundation capabilities to be able to do that in the not too distant future.
Great, thank you. Rupert, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that the role of Pim and Dam will change. I think it's a very mature market, and I think there are really good products out there. I think it's important for organizations to identify which products they need. Is it one or the other? But I do feel that there is going to be an overall increased need in Pim and Dam. And let's throw the fashion sector in that particularly. Within fashion, you need to have a massive focus on customer experience. To have a massive focus on customer experience, you need great content, you need great product content. So I'm seeing a lot of fashion companies want a Pim or a Dam system, and there are other verticals as well that need really strong customer experience, and we're going to need they're going to be buying solutions or have a need for solutions. There's another change that I'm seeing is rather than having really big systems that take years to implement, companies want leaner systems that they can implement quickly, get immediate results rather than get results in a year's time. So that I think will be a change that we're going to see increasingly on the market.
You concur with that, Phil?
Yeah, I do. We're seeing, you know, expectations from customers has really changed now, and it's a good thing that there should be more out of the box functionality. There should be faster implementation times, faster integration times, and more rapid time to value. And we're seeing that all over the place and have done for a few years now.
Thanks, Phil.
And apologies, just one more thing to throw in there. It's quite important. So historically, we saw a lot of decisions being made lower down about fixing a problem. And now we're seeing more C-level involvement in Pim decisions because they're realizing that it's critical to the business. And that's a really big change. Absolutely. We're seeing senior sponsorship for Pim projects.
Thank you, Rupert. Yeah, I guess same scenario for you, Ben.
Yeah, no, good. But I really like that comment because that reminded me of a conference I was once where a program manager was asked how he got the funding for it. And I think you said that earlier, Victor. He told his management, if we don't do it, we're dead. Right? Not every organization works that way. Some organizations actually need a more sophisticated, actually university-like approach for getting the funding, improving the business case, and so on. So of course, it depends on which is your organization. Do you need an advisor to build that? Do you need an Censhare? Do you need Victor? Do you need the vendor? Do you need somebody else to do it? Or it's understood. It's understood if you're not doing it, you probably have no future. And that reminds me of when I remember, maybe it was 2007 or so, where I tried to convince my CEO that we need a social media presence for our Pim offering. And now, right, social media is social commerce and generating billions of revenue. So that, I think that is a good picture of change, and at the end it's outcomes. And I think that's a separate deep conversation, maybe other roundtable about the measurement, the business case, and so on of that topic. I would love to be part of that, by the way.
I mean, you're sort of half doing my job for me there, Ben, because I was just going to have finally a little quick whip round from each of you, just to say, for those organisations that are undecided about the Pim Dam situation, what would be your recommendation for them to go forward at this point? What would be the first thing you suggest for them to do? Do you want to go in there first, Victor?
Sure. Assess what your outcomes are that you're looking to achieve, both short-term and your North Star. Assess what you've got already, always. Make sure to see if you know what you can do, can it do the job? And then after, make a plan on how to get there. There was the CMO of Bayer. I was at another conference earlier this week who spoke about business change, and I was talking to her about business change, and she had this quote which was amazing. She said, "Be very stubborn on the long-term goal, and be very flexible about how to get there." And I think if we could take that in the Pim Dam world, we'll all be very successful.
That's a good one. No, terrific. Great. Thank you, Victor. Rupert?
So I think it's all about the customer. It's about creating really good content, really good product information to support the user journey. So I would say benchmark yourself against your competitors. Is your user journey slick? Can customers navigate their way through your website? Do you have engaging content? And look at whether a PIM solution can support that process. And it really is make or break for some businesses.
Great. Lovely. Thank you, Rupert. Phil?
Yeah, I think it all comes back to what the guys have already said. Really, it's based around your business needs, and then building it out from there of what you've already got and where you eventually want to get to. And once you've got that information, then go out to the markets and find solutions that fit, and focus on the API first approach and faster implementation times.
Lovely. Great. Thank you very much, Phil. Ben, you got the last words.
Thank you. We're over time. I think you guys nailed it. I like the Bayer quote you mentioned. A plan for the unplannable.
Yeah.
That's the key thing.
Great. Lovely. Great. Thank you. Thanks for keeping it all concise, each of you. Great. As Ben quite rightly said, we're right up against the time. That's pretty much it. I'd very much like to thank the panel, Rupert, Victor, Ben, and Phil. Thank you very much for your input. Certainly made my job extremely easy. I hope you all now know your Pims from your Dams. Many thanks for joining us for this past hour, which has flown by. I've certainly enjoyed my sharing duties. Thanks for your time, and certainly thanks for your questions as well. Really apologise for the fact we couldn't possibly go through all of them. I'll now just leave the final closing words to Stefan at pimvendors.com. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Glyn. So what we've seen, I think, in the last hour is that there's a huge surge in data, and that it's driven by a surge in digital customer experiences and the digitalization of customer experience, and that it all comes down to e-commerce or social or COVID related, and that it's not a question of PIM or DAM or combination of the two. It's actually a whole architectural challenge. Like, what tools do you have, and how do you actually sort of use those and add a tool or replace a tool to serve your customer better? Because I think that is sort of also the main focus. Like, how do you serve and how will you serve in the future your customer? And what I think one of the takeaways I had is that there's a lot of hidden complexity in getting that right, in understanding your customer, but also in understanding your own business and where all these sort of hidden complexities are. Who is actually involved in the whole data and product process? It's not a question of how many products you have, but it's actually a question about how complicated and how complex your processes are. And then I think it's interesting, plan for the unplannable. So make sure that you get all those things right. That is super difficult. And then you also have to make sure that you leave some headspace and headroom to adapt, because we've all seen last year that there's change is always around the corner, and it can be rapid and very sudden change. So with that, I would like to wrap up. Quickly go to next steps. I would like to ask everyone to fill in a quick feedback survey that we'll send around. Obviously, you can visit our website, visit pimvendors.com for free tools and PIM advice and PIM information. And I'm inviting everyone to join us in the next session in June. So feel free to keep an eye on our socials and on your email inbox to see the invite for a next roundtable, because I think we had a lot of information and topics to be discussed. I want to thank everyone. I want to thank all the panel members. I want to thank all the participants for joining us today. And Glenn, I want to specifically thank you for moderating this event. And with that, I hope to see you all next time. Have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.